Thank you, everybody. Over to you, Jen.
Thank you very much, and good evening, everyone, and welcome to all members of the public who are watching this cabinet meeting via the East Suffolk YouTube channel. I'm Councillor Steve Gallant. I don't know why I said before that, because I knew who I was. I am the leader of the council, and I'll be chairing the meeting this evening. For those of us in the conference room, there is no fire alarm test planned, so should the fire alarm sound, it will be for real. In the event of a fire, please follow the instructions that will be issued to you and congregate outside by the Redoing the Park sign, if you can find it, because it's currently covered in a tarpaulin, of course. Yeah, but it's good. So works are ongoing. The fire exits in this room are clearly marked. Please do not re-enter the building until you are informed it is safe to do so. For the benefit of those watching at home, this meeting is being conducted both physically here in the conference room at our Melton office and remotely. The two parts of the meeting, as it were, are being broadcast live on our YouTube channel. For information, the leader of the council is elected by a majority of the full council. They then appoint both their deputy leader and their cabinet members. The individual portfolios for the cabinet members are allocated by the leader. The cabinet members work closely with the various senior officers of the council to ensure that the work of council is carried out in both an effective and an efficient manner. The powers of cabinet are laid out in our constitution. Thus, some decisions that are made are executive decisions authorised by this cabinet, and some are passed up as recommendations to full council. Only cabinet members can vote on cabinet members, but other members may be invited to ask questions and to join in the debate. At the conclusion of the debate and questions on each report, I'll ask the leading cabinet member to propose the recommendations within the report. And subject to these being proposed and seconded, a vote will be undertaken. I'll declare if the recommendations have been agreed or not. Members, turning to the agenda for this evening, item 1 is apologies for absence. Karen?
Thank you, Chairman. We have apologies from Councillor James Mullender, and we also have apologies from 2 assistant cabinet members, Councillor Mark Jackson and Councillor Tony Cooper. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you very much. Item 2 is declarations of interest. So members and officers are invited to make any declarations of interest and the nature of that interest that they may have in relation to items on the agenda. And also reminded to make any declarations at any stage during the meeting if it becomes apparent this may be required when a particular item or issue is considered. So does any members or officers have any declarations to make? I'm not seeing any in the room or online at all, so thank you for that, and we shall move on. Item 3 is announcements. I don't believe I have any announcements to make this evening. Any cabinet members in the room have any to make? And any online? Any hands going up? I see none. Gosh, this is going very well. Thank you very much. In that case, we shall move as swiftly on to item 4. Item 4 is to confirm as a correct record the minutes of our meeting held on the 4th of October. You'll find them pages 1 to 7 in your pack, and I shall take them as a true and accurate record unless anybody indicates to the contrary. I see no one, so indicating in that case we shall take those as true and accurate. Thank you, Karen. So we'll move on to item 5, our key decisions for this evening. Item 5 is a continuation of East Suffolk Community Partnerships and Enabling Communities budget. You'll find it on page 8 to 22 in your pack. This paper sits with our cabinet member Letitia Smith. Letitia's joining us remotely and will be ably supported, I am sure, by Nicole Rickard as well. Letitia, good evening and over to you.
Good evening, Chairman. Thank you very much, and good evening, everyone. This report seeks continued commitment to support East Suffolk's Community Partnerships Board to look at the 8 community partnerships as well and our enabling community partnership budgets. The 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 community partnership that we're looking for continued support to agree funding up till March 2027, we can all agree how incredibly valuable it's been to our communities. It's helped during difficult times of COVID and increased living costs. And what it's allowed us to do at East Suffolk Council is to connect with our residents and the people that live locally and rely upon us to support them in these difficult times. The report goes into detail about some of the projects that have been done and the work that we've achieved. And what it's actually seeking is the continued funding to allow us to deliver this to our residents until March 2027. And I'm happy to just take any questions that people have got.
Thank you, Letitia. Clearly, you'll know that I'm a great supporter of community partnerships and the Community Partnership Board, and of course the enabling communities budgets that are linked to that. I think it really has allowed us to get amongst the residents of our community to allow ward members to become those community leaders, which is a particular role for councillors, and to make a real difference to those small community groups and residents groups across the district, which otherwise we may well have struggled to bring together in such a cohesive way. And I think you will agree, members, but you'll tell me if I'm wrong, that you know, the value of those during the pandemic was second to none. You know, I think, you know, there was many other councils, both in this county and wider afield, that were looking with envy at the way that we already had those community links that came about by the hard work of all the members involved in that. So I think it's right and proper that we seek to continue these community partnerships into the future, because I think they add great value to this council and particular value to the residents as well. So cabinet members, comments or questions? Sorry, Richard, thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much indeed, Chairman. I echo your sentiments there. I've found we've been able to go out into the communities and do things from nest swings to raised gardens that disabled people can feel part of the community, because they can have an allotment now, whereas before, you know, the allotments don't take fast rents off people, and they wouldn't find themselves in a position to be able to do that. But we've been able to go out there and do that for our community, and I think we've made a great difference. You're dead right. What we didn't know COVID was around the corner, but when COVID struck, we were in a position within Felixstowe and the ward I am to actually, the ball was more or less rolling the community partnerships, and we got on with COVID, and we pulled all the agencies together, whether that was volunteers or anything. We were able to go and dish out PPE to surgeries, and if we hadn't have had them community partnerships, we'd have had to start from scratch. So they are a great asset to this council, and they are a great asset to the community we serve, and I'll fully support this paper.
Thank you very much, Richard. Any other cabinet members, any comments? I know you share my views, but excellent. Oh, Mary, Councillor Wright, good evening.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. The community partnerships are working really well with the health and wellbeing agenda at the moment, so I really do fully support them and think they're a brilliant thing to carry on with.
Thank you, Mary. Okay, any other members? Anything to say? Mike? Councillor Deacon.
That's quite okay, because somebody else has got their microphone on here. Well, I'm not working anyway. Yeah, that's better. Thank you very much. Councillor Foss, the £7,500 that each councillor is allocated, is that absolutely cast in stone for the final year sorry, it's not the final year, it's been the first year of the next one. So can I make a plea, please, that given the financial constraints that this country now finds itself in and the pressures that are on everybody, that must be affecting the very people that we're helping with our grants every year. And I would make a request that we upped the £7,500 to £8,000 going forward. The other thing is that I note that Lowestoft and the northern parishes, I think it's what, 67,000 people are represented, 66,000 people they're represented. Would it be a good idea to cut that patch in two? Have Lowestoft separately to the northern parishes?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I mean, I'm happy to bring Nicole in respect of that. I mean, the community partnership areas, of course, need to be constantly reviewed. If you increase the number of community partnership areas, then you in effect need to increase the number of community support, the support officers in the communities team that would come with that. But nothing is set in stone, of course. I think you're absolutely right. You know, I'm sure there is an opportunity for the next council, you know, that follows behind us to look at that funding and to make a decision as to whether it should be upped or not. The amount, the 7,500 to 8,000, it's not an unrealistic ask. But of course, that's got to be budgeted for. So that money has got to come from somewhere else. So it's not it's not aligned within the budget at this time. But I think it would be interesting to see, Mike, what how much money is allocated by individual officers, individual members to the various things. Because I've taken, and you know where I'm coming from on this, Mike. You know, we have asked all members to give some money towards various schemes that we've had. We had the one for the pandemic, and we've had the one for the Easter Squeeze campaign as well. And members, where possible, have generously donated from their community enabling budget into that. So I think I would be uncomfortable this evening in saying that I think, you know, we will up that or we will change any boundaries. But I know that Nicole and the team, together with Letitia, continuously monitor that and see where it goes. Nicole, Letitia, you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, happy to add to that. Good evening, everybody. Just to say, we did look at the Lowestoft area. It's obviously significantly bigger than any of the other community partnership areas. We did quite a lot of engagement when we were first looking at the community partnerships, and the feedback we got at that point was it would be better not to divide Lowestoft either on a north-south or east-west basis. So part of the support resources that we put in is an additional half a communities officer to recognise the fact that the Lowestoft and Northern Parishes community partnership area is bigger than the other areas. But it's certainly something we can revisit and look at again. But when we were looking at this in 2019, the view was very much that it would be better to not split Lowestoft at that time. But we can look again at that and obviously revisit the amounts of the enabling communities budgets. Just to add to what you've said, Leader, there are several cabinet members and other councillors who've contributed to the Ease the Squeeze campaign by contributing the whole of their enabling communities budgets this financial year, which has boosted the pot in their particular area. So spend against the enabling communities budgets is approaching 50%, which is about normal for this time of year.
Lovely, thank you, Nicole. I think, you know, just to add to that, Mike, I think, you know, it's really difficult, isn't it? Because if you split, to all intents and purposes, a community in half, Lowestoft in half, and go, okay, we've got two teams operating. The reality of that is that they would probably come together and jointly do things anyway. You know, you're not going to do something that only covers the east of Lowestoft or the west of Lowestoft or the north or the south. You know, the opportunity there, I suppose, is to do something that's going to benefit the whole of that, the whole of the residents that live within that area. It'd be a difficult line to draw, I feel, but we'll look at it. Yeah, go on, Mike.
Can I come back on that? Because using my own experience and taking the Felixstowe Peninsula group, we have to be very, very careful that it doesn't become Felixstowe concentric. And I have a feeling that Lowestoft, being a much bigger town than Felixstowe, that could even be more acute. And I don't want to really say too much further about that, but I just think, you know, there's an opportunity that might be missed here. But anyway, I understand what you're saying, and thanks for that.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Yeah, Councillor Bevan, David, good evening.
Couple of points. First off, can we have a bit more emphasis on long-term capacity building for resilient communities and a little less on sticking plaster measures? I don't mean that in a critical way, just with looking at the funding, which is the second question, is based on the new homes bonus, I gather, and the reserve in the MTFS is being run down in a couple of years' time. So where is the funding going to come from? And if we're going to have to find funding, let's have some real legacy from this community partnership, which I fully support.
Yeah, thank you, David. Of course, each community partnership, which is made up of all members of this council, together with strategic partners and community groups, decide what they want to spend the money on. So, you know, some of those small things are really important to communities. They're really important. You know, that's how they decide to spend their budgets, and they do that in an open forum and taking into account what the local community feels is needed in that area. In respect of funding, we've made the commitment as outlined in this paper here as to where that funding is coming from. Of course, you know, funding streams change and move as time progresses. So the challenge for my learned friend over there, Councillor Cook and Brian and the funding will be to find where that money comes from and to continue funding the projects going forward. Because what we're saying is that we as a cabinet, and I'm sure we as a council, place great value in this. So, you know, as a priority, we need to find those funding streams in order to deliver it. And, you know, if one funding stream shuts, then I'm sure another one will open. That seems to be the way that things work at this moment in time. If you want to add anything to that, Maurice, did you?
Well, only to say that the finance team are fully committed to this paper and fully support it.
Yeah, thank you. So, Louise, good. You had your hand up and then it went down again. Was that because it was the same question, or did I miss something?
Yes, good evening, Leader. Yes, thank you very much. Yes, my colleague Mike Deacon, Councillor Mike Deacon, asked the questions. Yes, I think it does need revisiting just in terms of financial equitability. Oh, sorry, I'm talking about the Lowestoft and Northern parishes. I do understand the comments about the gravitational pull of Lowestoft and the idea of keeping the whole area together, and that's really important rather than dividing the town. But just in terms of sort of financial equitability, really, probably needs revisiting at some point. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And you know, that financial equity, I can't say it either, by the way, is absolutely a key issue, and it's one we had many debates on when we first set up community partnerships and the funding of it. I think, you know, when you look at if you looked on it by population figures, then you would almost expect there to be more money going into the more populated areas of the district. But the reality of that is, and you know, I look to colleagues in here that are ward members in more rural communities. The cost of delivering a project in a rural community is far greater than the cost of delivering a project in an urban community. You know, you can build one skate park I'm not suggesting that's what we do, but you could build one skate park in the middle of Lowestoft or in the middle of Felixstowe, and it would service all those people. Now, if I look at my colleague Stephen Burrows over there and ask him where he would want the skate park that's going to serve his whole community, he'd tell me he wants at least 12 skate parks to give the young people in that community the same opportunity. So it's a really tricky one, and one we did struggle with when we were setting this up in the first place. But I think at the moment we've got it right. It will continue to be reviewed. It will continue to be looked at, and I know that Nicole and the team are committed to that continuous review for all aspects of community partnerships going forward.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from anybody? No, I see no hands up. In that case, I shall ask Letitia to take us to the recommendations, which members you'll find on page 10 of your papers. Letitia, back to you.
Chairman, thank you. Before I do read out the recommendations, I would just like to personally thank all councillors who contribute to our community partnerships and to our officers, and particularly to Nicole, who does a fantastic job, and I appreciate everything that we all do. To the recommendations, Cabinet recommend to full council, number 1, that it be agreed to continue to support and enable Community Partnership Board and the 8 community partnerships, one of each in the area shown in Appendix 1 in this report, until the end of March 2027. Number 2, that it be agreed to continue to support the enabling communities budgets as at the level of £7,500 per councillor until the end of March 2027. Number 3, that £1,064,000 funding per annum be committed to the project for 2023-24, 24-25 financial years from the New Homes Bonus, and to fund a similar level of the following for the following further 2 years, subject to funding being available. And number 4, that the purpose, remit, governance and structure of the community partnerships in East Suffolk, as set out in the report, be endorsed, and that the impact and the community partnerships be reviewed annually through the annual monitoring report, Chairman.
Thank you very much. I'm going to take the liberty, I can see Mary shoved her hand up, but I'm going to take the liberty of seconding that from the chair, just because I can, because I've got the microphone and Mary hasn't, and because it is something that is very, very dear to my heart. So sorry about that, Mary. So members, you've heard the recommendations, and as highlighted, this is a recommendation to full council, and no doubt there will be further opportunity for discussion at full council. You've heard the recommendations moved by Letitia, seconded by myself, and I'll ask all those in the room first. Are those in favour? Thank you. That's unanimous in the room, and online we've got Councillor Rard.
Paul.
Thank you, Mary. Councillor Brooks.
Hello.
Thank you, Norman. And well, Councillor Smith, Letitia actually proposed it, so I know that she is in favour. So members, that is unanimous. So thank you very much. And I would echo Letitia's comments about our thanks to the communities team for the sterling work they do in respect of this, which I know is getting harder and harder during this period of difficulty. And the Easter Squeeze campaign is causing them a lot of work, and we're exceptionally grateful for that. So members, I'll move us on, if I may, to item 6. Item 6 is the UK Shared Prosperity and Rural England Prosperity Funds. I'm sure if you don't know what they mean, you're just about to find out, because the Deputy Leader has his paper, ably supported by Paul Wood, and it's pages 23 to 69 of your pack. Craig, over to you.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, as members will know, we have to approve receipt of funds, which is in essence what this paper is all about. So potentially receiving 2.75 million for a multi-year project through to 2025, and a Rural England Prosperity Fund of 1.13 million. You'll see within the papers the extent of engagement that's gone into building the proposals. They touch the themes of economic and community, but moving to what they will look like in person, the tangibles that we'll get out of those, such as high street improvements, community food networks, warm rooms, business support such as startup advice, grants for net zero and business growth, and importantly skills. And so we'll be working with the County Council as well. We were due to announce the receipt of those funds, but perhaps to quote Macmillan, events, dear boy, events, held up the approval coming out of government at the moment, but we're expecting that very shortly. And within the paper, you can see there's also authorisation for the team, along with Councillor Letitia Smith, to submit our bid into the rural fund there by the 30th of November. I'll pause there unless there's anything further that Paul wants to add to this. I think it's relatively straightforward paper.
Thank you. Paul, anything to add?
Yeah, just to briefly say that the Shared Prosperity Fund and the Rural England Prosperity Fund replace former sort of EU programs. So in addition to the sort of the business support and skills that was in there, there's also the communities element. So you've seen those sort of 3 investment priorities that are listed within the plan. which is around sort of communities in place, supporting local business people and skills. So some of this will allow the continuation of the sort of good work around business support and skills development, but also with that extra dimension around communities in place where we're, you know, as has been mentioned, that will help us address some of the cost of living issues as well with the programs in there. So, and as I said, this will be a mixture of stuff that's delivered directly through East Suffolk Council, but also jointly with other districts across the county. So, but that's as much as I want to say, Leader.
Thank you, Paul. Cabinet members, I'd be very surprised if you weren't in favour of receiving money, but I will give you the opportunity of any questions or comments at this stage. No, I'm not seeing any hands up. That's to be expected. Members, Mike?
No problem with accepting more money at all, but I'd just like to ask a couple of questions, if I may. First one is, go to page 35, the last paragraph. What does the author of the report mean by the lack of cultural leadership in this stuff? I believe we paid a lot of attention and made big efforts to offer more cultural events. And given grants to outside bodies, particularly to the First Light, etc., to lead on this, what is the issue being highlighted here?
Yeah, happy to start on that, and I'm sure Paul will add some further detail on that. With these submissions to government, invariably it's very useful to give a full background as to the journey that the district council has been on, and sometimes you have to highlight the problems. If not, if you present an all rosy kind of picture, they'll think, well, why do you need the money? So you have to paint a picture. But Paul, anything further you want to add on that?
Yeah, I mean, what we've seen is the comparative sort of point. This is Councillor Deakin about, when you look nationally, cultural sort of leadership, cultural activity has been sort of very important in terms of driving sort of local economic development. And up until recent times, East Suffolk and particular areas like Lowestoft did suffer from a lack of this. Now, you're right, you've mentioned First Light and other things, and this is it's almost a work in progress, and we're addressing this for a number of measures. But I think it was good to highlight that this is still a journey that we're on, and in order to sort of reap the sort of local economic benefits and the business benefits and the community benefits you get through sort of cultural activity, there's still quite a lot to do. And I think at the moment we've moved that forward in Lowestoft, but we've got a job to do across the rest of the district. And some of that will come through the sort of cultural strategy that's just being put in place, but that is just to sort of flag up within the investment plan. We see this as an area for a priority, and with the cultural strategy in place, it will provide a strong framework for our sort of future investment and future activity.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks for that. My other question is regarding, the statement on page 35, 36, second part of the last paragraph, where it mentions the gross disposable income per head of the new Anglia Let, and across East Suffolk, therefore, but it's 21,000, which compares quite badly with 24,000 odd for the whole of North and Suffolk economic strategy area. Could you define what you mean by gross disposable income? Because I don't think it's what I would accept.
That one. Yeah, straight to Paul on that one, I'm afraid, but my knowledge doesn't extend that far.
I guess, I mean, it's a measure of sort of the available income, Councillor Deakin, that people have to spend in the area. So it's, as you have a base sort of measure around sort of income, but when you look at disposable income, it's less sort of things like housing costs, energy costs, transport costs. And as a result of that, East Suffolk fares worse than the sort of Norfolk and Suffolk average. So again, it's that comparative measure showing that there is some sort of need in this area that we need to address.
Yeah, I think, obviously the cost of living is a significant impact on that, isn't it? So, if you lived in Surrey and you were paying a house rental, the house rental for a small place in Surrey is probably, twice what it would be in bits of Essex, for instance. So although two people maybe have a comparable income, the reality of their outgoing, so that the money they have to spend at the end of the month is going to be significantly different. So I think what this is saying is that East Suffolk, we know there is work that he's doing to increase the average wages of people within East Suffolk. We're not a high earning area. So as a result of that, then the disposable income is below what it would be elsewhere, say in Cambridge, for instance. So there is a significant difference.
Yeah, I accept that and I understand that, but when I talk about gross disposable income, it's, if it were wages, it would be your income before you pay tax, pension funds, national insurance and all the rest of it. So this year you're saying, are you telling me that there is £21,000 disposable income after household living, or is it a lot less than that?
What we'll do is rather than get into the specifics, I'm sure the team are very thorough when it comes to producing these reports, and I'm sure we'll be able to get a full legal definition that helps answer your questions to any fears as to what they're inferring.
Thank you, I would appreciate that.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Any other members? Louise, Gooch.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Leader. Again, just to complement the questions raised by Councillor Mike Deacon as well. Just in Lowestoft, as has been mentioned by Paul, the voluntary sector and indeed the leadership in particular theatres and cultural centres is hugely impressive. I've just been to the Lowestoft Film Festival. In fact, I spent as much time as I could possibly spend there. An amazing feat that was pulled off by two young entrepreneurs in our community. And also, of course, we have, in addition now to the Seagull and the Marina and the Players, we also have the Grit now. So I just think that needs to be celebrated more. On a negative, if we're talking about levels of disadvantage, we probably need to be putting more in terms of the transport connectivity, which is listed on the same page. And there seems to be nothing about the bus networks or indeed the lack thereof. And that's a major barrier to economic development in our area. So were this document to be reviewed, we really do need to be tackling bus poverty here too. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks. On those 2 points. So first of all, you're absolutely right that Joshua does an absolutely stellar job promoting the Lowestoft Film Festival. It was inaugural, I think, was this year. Joshua is very active on the Lowestoft Place Board as well. And also, I should add, as you say, that we've got some very key theatres within Lowestoft. And Helen, who's supporting me on the paper thereafter on this one, is very heavily involved on the Cultural Leadership Board, which brings together all of those persons and bodies to make sure that we've got the best opportunities we can to promote that within the town. On rural transport, I think that's, there's so many things that would be lovely to tackle, but we need to be focused within our bids and what we can do. These have been reviewed, as I say in my opening remarks, that the likes of Therese and Peter, Aldous, Therese Kofi, along with, I think there were 63 other responses that we had to consolidate to give a concise structures to how we would spend this money. So I'm sure that if Norman wants to speak specifically on rural transport, I'm sure he'll be able to give details as to what we'd like to do, and I'm sure we'd like to be able to go further on rural transport, but specifically on the UK Shared Prosperity Fund. I think what we've got here is a strong bid, which I think government will give us the nod very shortly.
Yeah, thank you. And just to add to that, of course, through the Community Partnership Board, the rural transport is a key work stream from the Community Partnership Board that we spoke about earlier. I know Norman represents us on that group. Norman? No. Okay. Paul, did you want to come back on that?
Yeah, I just wanted to come in on the transport connectivity. I mean, that has been raised through the sort of survey work we've done on the Rural England Prosperity Fund, which isn't a surprise because it's come as a priority before. But I think the issue is this is probably the wrong fund for that. It's got 1.1 million over 3 years to spread across the whole district, and that won't go very far in terms of sort of transport investment. And it's, the main aim is to get grants into the local community for a sort of local infrastructure projects, but it has come up as a priority, and it's something we're working on. But it's other funds, I think, that we're going to have to use to focus on that. This really isn't the correct sort of funding regime for that. It just clearly isn't enough in terms of how far it can go. But the evidence that we've used, we are going to look at some sort of some sort of transport innovation around the use of apps for the bus service that already exists and things of that ilk. And we're working with Lewes and the County Council to see how we can use the Rural Fund in order to help with transport connectivity. But as I say, I think other funds are more appropriate for this and larger funds, if I'm being totally honest.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul. Thanks, Louise. Any other comments from any other members? David?
Just to say, I'm pretty sure Europe gave us more than that.
Sorry, I missed that. Say again?
Just to say, I'm pretty sure that Europe gave us more than that.
Yes, they did. Yep, it's a reduction. Yeah, you're absolutely right. In that case, members, if no other questions, I'll ask the Deputy Leader to take us to the recommendations, which you'll find on page 24 of your paper.
Thank you, Leader. That the receipt of 2.75 million from the UK Shared Prosperity Fund be approved. 2, that the implementation of the East Suffolk Council UK Shared Prosperity Fund investment plan be approved. 3, that the receipt of 1.13 million from the Rural England Prosperity Fund be approved. 4, that authority be delegated to the Head of Economic Development and the Head of Communities in consultation with the Cabinet Member with responsibility for economic development and the Cabinet Member with responsibility for communities, leisure and tourism to finalise the Rural England Prosperity Fund delivery plan and submit to DEFRA by 30th of November 2022, and so seek second.
Thank you very much. And I can see Letitia's hand shot up like a rocket. She likes to get money as well, I understand. Members, you've heard the recommendation that's moved by the Deputy Leader, seconded by Letitia. In the room, all those in favour? Thank you. And online, Councillor Rudd, Mary?
For.
And Norman?
For.
And Letitia is the seconder, so we know that she is in favour. So members, that is unanimous. Thank you very much, and thank you to Paul and the team for. I know it's a considerable amount of work getting all these bids in, so many thanks for their work involved in that. Okay, let's move on, if we may, to item 7. Item 7 is a partnership scheme in a conservation area application and match of funding. This is again with the Deputy Leader, who's been exceptionally busy this evening. You'll find the papers 70 to 79 in your pack. He's ably supported by Helen Johnson, I am sure. And over to you, Craig.
Thank you, Leader. And yes, good to see Helen now on the virtual call there as well. So yes, one of my many obligations is to be chair of the Heritage Action Zones, which I can honestly say is an absolute pleasure. When you think that some of the outputs that have been before this council and cabinet, including design guides, the Nest Park, which we've handed over to Lowestoft Town Council, Heritage Open Days involvements, schools restoration, it's absolutely wonderful that they were using medieval flint techniques and all sorts to restore them to be faithful to the original. We've also got the Southern Heritage Action Zone, which is one of only 7 towns to have 2 nationally, which is great. And you'll see within the report the extent of the public support and private investment that has come from these Heritage Action Zones. And also at this point, I will just say just how much of a pleasure it has been that Historic England, Ed James and Tony Calladine have been on the board to make some of this a reality, and we couldn't have done so much, I'm sure, without their financial support. Another one, the shopfront scheme that was mentioned in the earlier paper has been another great outcome from the Heritage Action Zone, and hopefully some of you will have been able to see the tremendous reveal that is the post office that's part of the Southern Heritage Action Zone that looks fantastic in the High Street. It isn't just about just carrots. There is also stick, and I must give thanks to both Helen for her perseverance as well as the planning team for their support in engaging with owners where we need them to move a bit quicker so that we can get those to be the proud high streets of place that we want them to be. As you'll see, I think from the positive relationship that we do have with Historic England, you can see within the paper that they've actually said to us, why don't you apply for one of our schemes for £350,000, which I think is a great manifestation of the relationship that we have with them. So from that, there's an ask that if Cabinet will so support us, that we will match that so that we continue with shop front grant restorations schemes. Within the paper, as I hope you'll agree, that there's tremendous pictures of some of the restorations that can be enabled from some of these grant schemes. The chemist shop, I think in particular, really is quite striking to think what it was to what it is now. Another great outcome from the Heritage Action Zones is the businesses that actually come into the Heritage Action Zones, because they can see that there's pride of place and this is a place where they want to do business. So that really is a summary of the paper. Helen, is there anything I've missed that you wanted to add?
Thank you, Councillor Rivets. Nothing to add at this point. I think all the main elements have been covered. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. Thank you, Helen. So really important for me that the investment opportunity we have here, the match funding opportunity we have here. It's one of those things, isn't it, where it's a little bit about encouraging people to keep up with the neighbours. As you see investment happening down your street, be that a high street or a residential street, and things are being tidied up, you sort of feel more inclined to tidy up your own little patch, and that's really what this is about. I think is to encourage pride in the community, to encourage an investment in property, and hopefully just to make people feel better about the place that they live and work in. So a really good opportunity here. Cabinet members, so David.
Yeah, thank you. Lowestoft has a rich history going back to medieval times, and in past years, in previous times, the fabric of the town has been somewhat neglected. I think this is really an excellent scheme to have a partnership with Historic England, and good work is being done. I welcome this. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Any other cabinet members? Not seeing any hands up. Members? Mike?
Yes, thank you very much, Leader. Could I just ask very quickly, will Lowestoft Town Council be committing any funding to this scheme?
I know who asked you to ask that. I don't think so. In fairness, that's a matter for Lowestoft Town Council.
This is an application by East Suffolk Council to Historic England via one of their grant schemes. We will then go out to owners of, and you'll see within the papers that, again, Helen's been thoroughly an absolute trooper when it comes to engaging with businesses about seeing that if they want to take up on these grants, and we need to do that early because the processes involved with surveyors and architects and all those sorts of things take time so that we can get that money allocated and spent. Lowestoft Town Council are a member of the Heritage Action Zone. Hopefully they will see that the good work and agree with the good work that comes out of the Heritage Action Zone, and will equally see what neighbours are getting up to, and for their assets they too will run with doing their part for uplifting the town.
Thank you, Mike. Any other questions or comments from any members? No, I'm not seeing any other hands up. In that case, Craig, if you would be so kind as to take us to the recommendations, which are on page 71, members.
Thank you, Leader. That £350,000 of match funding over the period of 2023-2024 to 2027-2028 be approved, and that it be agreed to make an application to Historic England for the same amount under the partnership scheme in conservation areas. And so see the sector.
Thank you very much, and I'm sure that's seconded by Councillor Ritchie. I thought, oh, Mary, they've beaten you to it again. I'm sorry. Members, you've heard the recommendation as moved by the Deputy Leader, seconded by Councillor Ritchie, much to Mary's chagrin, and I shall seek votes in the room. Those in favour? Thank you. And Mary, I assume you're in favour?
Yes, 4.
Sorry, mate. I promise I'll come to you next time. Councillor Brooks, Norman?
Yeah, 4.
And Letitia?
4.
Thank you very much. So, members, that is unanimous. And Helen, I know you do an awful lot of work on this, amongst many other things that you do as well. So many thanks for your input to this. We are exceedingly grateful. And I shall move us on, if I may, to item 8 on the agenda, housing in clusters and small-scale residential development in the countryside, which is a supplementary planning document which sits in the capable hands of Councillor David Ritchie, ably supported, I'm sure, by Ben White. You'll find it on pages 80 to 268 of your pack. David, over to you.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I welcome the fact that we have planning policies that do allow some development in the smaller villages. I live in a small village, and an occasional house being built, in my view, is good for the community. Obviously, we have to have clear policies as to which houses can be built. It cannot be a free-for-all. Planned housing growth in the council's 2 local plans, the Waveney Local Plan for 2019 and the Suffolk Coastal Local Plan for 2020, is focused, of course, largely on urban areas and defined larger settlements and some allocations in larger villages. However, as part of those strategies, both local plans also provide opportunities for some limited housing to come forward in the countryside. The housing in clusters and small-scale residential developments in the countryside supplementary planning document supports the implementation of policies relating to small-scale residential development in the countryside. Suffolk Coastal Local Plan 5.4, housing in clusters in the countryside, is in the old Suffolk Coastal area, and Waveney Local Plan 8.7, small scale residential development in the countryside, is for the previous Waveney area. Since the adoption of the local plans, a relatively large number of applications have come forward relating to these policies, some of which have resulted in appeals. Some communities have also raised concerns about what these policies could mean for their areas. The supplementary planning document therefore provides guidance to assist in the implementation, including on how to identify areas that could be considered as clusters or settlements in the countryside, the requirements for sites to be considered appropriate for development, the landscape and character considerations of such development, the expectations of public engagement on proposals, and how SCLP 5.4 and WLP 8.7 relate to other policies in the local plans. The housing in clusters and small-scale residential developments, SPD, was subject to 2 rounds of consultation during its preparation. The first was an initial consultation to inform the scope and content of the SPD. This initial consultation took the form of targeted workshops, which involved an interactive session using examples to illustrate circumstances where the policy may apply, in which questions, issues and suggestions for the SPD could be raised. The 3 workshops held in spring 2022 comprised an agents and developers workshop, a town and parish councils workshop, and a member workshop. And at each stage of this, the development of this SPD, it has come to the local plan working group, and it's been very well received by the local plan working group. We actually had quite fun examining how you work out what is a cluster and what isn't a cluster. And this is absolutely core of what is useful about this SPD for developers. People want to put a bit of work into planning for something that is going on the right lines and won't lead to appeals and a lot of wasted effort. So the feedback received from the workshops informed the preparation of a draft supplementary planning document. Public consultations on the draft subsequently ran for 7 weeks from the 17th of June until 5th of August 2022, and in total 55 individuals and organisations responded to the consultation. Between them, they made 106 comments. The comments received have been considered in finalising the SPD. And Ben Wright, who's with me to help answer questions, he's led the work on this, and I think he's done a very good job. And I think you're aware by the number of pages involved that we have to do a lot of work to put supplementary planning documents in place. You can't just do it, but we have pressed forward on this one as quickly as we have been able to, because people out there want clarity as what can be built and what can't be built in our smaller communities. So over to questions, Chairman.
Thank you, David. Excellent document, really, really good, and actually one you can read, which is always welcome. So you know we're getting very good now at producing documents that actually they're easy to read, easy to understand, and answer a lot of the questions that many developers and local communities will have in respect to this matter. So I'm really pleased. Craig.
Thank you. Just to add to your comments, really welcome this paper, having sat on the planning committee for some time now. Invariably, rural developments can spark quite some controversy, quite some debate as to whether it's allowed or not. But I think this document will really assist, as you say, developers, but also committees to consider the permutations, and it'll be a great addition. So really do welcome this paper.
Thank you, Craig. Stephen?
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. I think it's a really interesting paper, and I think particularly in very rural spots. I live in a other village which has had no development whatsoever, apart from the odd infill or ad hoc application. I think what we wouldn't want to do is to turn this into a free-for-all. So developers could come in, develop a cluster, and then sell those at a premium, because that's always been an issue in terms of very rural environments where property is extremely expensive. My question to you would be, is there the opportunity to consider any cluster as an exception site for affordable housing for local people? Because I think that's one of the problems we have in very small villages, that local families can't afford to stay there and certainly can't afford to buy in. So is that something that would be considered?
David?
I'll probably hand over quite quickly, but I'd just say the clusters is the clusters policy is for the old Suffolk coastal area, so it wouldn't apply to your village, just to be clear. Oh, of course it's Suffolk. Oh, no, it's not. Yes, he is. Cheddiston. I know Cheddiston well. I beg your pardon. Yes. I think, well, off the top of my head, rural exception sites for affordable housing are considered under different policies, and would not have to conform to cluster policies, but I'll refer to Ben in case I haven't got that exactly right. Oh, I can see Andrea. Hello.
Andrea.
Hello, yes, I
Head
think.
of planning policy, Andrea.
Hello, yes, I think Ben might be having some connection issues because he seems to have disappeared from the meeting, unfortunately. But I'll, if it's okay, I'll step in and answer that question around affordable housing. But yes, exactly as you say, Councillor Ritchie, there are other policies in the local plans that specifically provide for affordable housing to come forward on exception sites, and those could be adjacent, for example, to settlement boundaries. So there are opportunities for affordable housing to come forward where the clusters policy wouldn't enable market housing to come forward. So they are subject to separate policies in the plans, and sort of addressing different aims, essentially.
I think it'd be right to say that exceptional sites of affordable housing would be unlikely to be brought forward in a small village like the one I live in or the one you live in, because it's preferable that they have got more facilities and bus routes and that sort of thing.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments from cabinet members? No. Other members? No. Okay, in that case, thank you very much for a very thorough introduction, very thorough explanation. And if you would take us to the recommendations, please, David, which members you'll find on page 81 of your pack.
Just coming to the recommendation, I'll just say the way that this document has been produced, the diagrams within it, I think are exceptional. I would just like to underline that I thank the officers for all their work, but particularly how we got to the final view where you can see at a glance what a cluster looks like. Okay, that's enough for me. Over to the recommendations, and recommendation 1, that housing in clusters and small-scale residential in the countryside supplementary planning document be adopted. 2, that the head of planning and coastal management, in consultation with the cabinet member with the responsibility for planning and coastal management, be authorised to make any presentational or typographical amendments to the housing in clusters and small-scale residential development in the countryside supplementary planning document prior to its being published. And I call for a seconder.
Thank you. I'm going to, all cabinet members, put your hands down. Mary, are you interested in seconding this? No, she's sulking. Okay, in that case. Norman beat you to it, Mary, if you were. Too late now. See, Norman's put his hand up. I gave you the chance and you blew it. So, members, you've heard the recommendation as moved by Councillor Ritchie, seconded by Councillor Brooks. All those in favour in the room? That's unanimous in the room. And Mary, I probably won't come to you next.
For.
Thank you, Mary. And Norman, we know. Letitia.
For.
Thank you, members. That is unanimous, as I thought it might be. Thank you for your support of that paper, and particular thanks to all the officers. And I know it was a team effort to put together what is a very comprehensive document indeed. Very well written. Thank you very much. So let's move us on, if I may, to item 9. Item 9 is East Suffolk Local Council Tax Reduction Scheme for 23-24. Pages 269 to 274 in your pack, and over to our financial wizards, which is Councillor Cook and Brian Muse. So Maurice, over to you.
Leader, thank you very much indeed. Yes, each year, as members will remember, the council is required to review its local council tax reduction scheme. The Anglia Revenue Partnerships have carried out the annual review of the 2022 scheme. In recent years, a number of technical changes to streamline the process and improve the customer journey have been implemented. No further changes of this nature are currently proposed in respect of 2023-24. Where it is determined to retain the existing scheme, this must be decided by the 11th of March of the preceding financial year. Retention of the existing scheme with no changes is a decision that can be taken by Cabinet and does not require external consultation. The current East Suffolk Working Age Local Council Tax Reduction Scheme provides a maximum benefit of 91.5% for working age claimants, and the scheme also fully protects war pensioners. An option that has been reviewed, but which is not recommended in this report, is to increase the maximum benefit for working age claimants to 100%, i.e. working age claimants would not have to contribute the 8.5% as they currently do. This option would entail sizable financial impacts on the precepting authorities, particularly the County Council, and the Council is undertaking a range of other initiatives targeting at the cost of living crisis. I've just put some figures to that. Is were we to increase the relief to 100%, it would cost East Suffolk Council £81,000, Suffolk County Council £660,000, and the Police and Crime Commissioner £114,000. It is therefore the recommendation is going to be that we make no change to the local council tax reduction scheme at this point. As always, supported by both Brian Mayo and Lorraine Rogers, and we'd be happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Maurice. It seems very clear to me. Cabinet members, any questions or comments? No. Oh, sorry, Richard.
Yeah, thanks very much indeed, Leader. Yeah, I support your paper there, Maurice. I can't see anything to gain by cutting other people's budgets. You know, the Police and Crime Commission and Suffolk County Council. So yeah, fully support the paper to keep as it is.
Yeah, thank you very much. Other members, any questions or comments? Not seeing any. No. Okay, thank you. In that case, Maurice, very straightforward. Please take us to the recommendations, which members you'll find on page 270.
Thank you, Leader. The recommendation is that it be approved that no change be made to the East Suffolk Local Council Tax Reduction Scheme, LCTRS, for the period 2023-24. I so propose and call for a second.
You don't need to call because Mary has answered before you call.
Thank you, Mary. You don't know how much that's appreciated.
So, members, you've heard the recommendation as moved by Councillor Cook. Timely way it was seconded by Councillor Rudd. So all those in favour in the room. Thank you. And Norman?
For.
Thank you. And Letitia?
For.
That members is unanimous. Thank you, and thanks for the work of the team on this one. Don't take a breath though, Maurice. We're moving on to item 10. Item 10 is the draft medium-term financial strategy, another one of your excellent papers. Members, you'll find them on 275 to 314 of your pack. Back to you, Maurice.
Yeah, thank you, Ido. This report provides an update of the draft medium-term financial strategy as of November 2022. The MTFS provides a baseline forecast of income and expenditure and looks at the overall financial climate, including public finances and the local government financial environment. Following the then Chancellor's announcement of some medium-term financial plan measures in October, it is unlikely that there will be any additional funding for local government for 2023-24 and 2024-25, including additional support for inflationary pressures. The current update of the MTFS therefore assumes no change to the current budgets for core and non-core funding streams. Further indication of changes to funding allocations for local government may be provided in the Chancellor's autumn statement, which is expected on the 17th of November. This is a change from the original intention to deliver the full medium-term fiscal plan on the 31st of October. Members will no doubt notice there are references in the report to the end of October, which of course was something that was changed by the present Chancellor since this report was produced. The 2023-24 referendum limits for council tax are expected to remain unchanged at the higher of 2% or £5 for shire districts in two-tier areas. An increase of £4.95 for 2023-24 would equate to a district band D council tax for East Suffolk of £181.17. Growth in the tax base is currently estimated at 1.33%, slightly higher than the original budget assumption of 0.92%. Implementation of business rates reform continues to be delayed, and it is now assumed that this will not take place until 2025-26. The financially advantageous position of the council under the current system has been reported in previous years, and this delay improves the budget position of the council in the region of £5 million for each of the next 2 financial years. The finance team continues to work with service areas to review budgets, and to date the work is reporting a budget pressure of some £2.6 million for the current year, mainly due to pay cost pressures and a reduction to income budgets. The delay to the business rates reforms has significantly improved the budget gap position for next year. The current budget gap for 2023-24 is £1.4 million, a reduction of £3.5 million from the position outlined in February of £4.9 million. Reserves are currently projected to remain healthy over the period of the MTFS at around £46 million, which at this time do not include use of reserves to fund the current year or future year budget gaps. If the budget gaps identified at this early stage of the MTFS for the current year and 2023-24 are still present at the end of the budget process, then use of the in-year savings reserve and the risk-based reserves will be made to balance the budgets. Local government continues to operate in very uncertain economic environment, making financial planning for the medium term challenging, to say the least. And a cautious approach is therefore taken with assumptions on future funding streams. It is hoped that some certainty around government funding for the next 2 years can be established from the Chancellor's autumn statement and the provisional local government finance settlement in early December. The next update of the medium-term financial strategy will be reported to Cabinet on the 3rd of January and will include further review of key areas such as establishment costs, business rates income, revenue implications of the capital programme, and the use of the reserves which are predicted. Members, I just commend the content in this report. It is extremely detailed. It outlines our true ethos of what we are trying to achieve from a financial point of view. It emphasises the fact that our goal is to balance the budget without using reserves, and it also emphasises the fact that we also make every effort to balance the budget, not relying on income from government, and to do less so wherever we can. Apart from the challenges, I mean, there are one or two pieces of good news. I mean, first of all, because of extremely good financial management and financial and treasury management, we are going to receive something in the region of £500,000 additional interest on our investments, and that's obviously because of the increase in rates. And one other notable benefit of note is that the Suffolk Pension Fund is fully funded to the extent of 107%. In East Suffolk, that is 110%. And we have currently been paying 32% of payroll into the pension scheme. We could reduce our payments to as much as 19%, but we have taken the view that it would be strategically sensible and prudent to continue to pay at a rate of around 25%, which would be sustainable for the next 20 years. And that in itself is going to bring a benefit of £1.4 million. And to put that into context, that's roughly the same as the likely pay settlement for this year. You know, we are still in a strong position, and we can only emphasise that we do not anticipate having to make any cuts in services or any reduction to our capital programme. I commend the report leader, and again, once the team, myself and the team will be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Maurice. And you know, every time I read one of these reports, I think that you know the crystal ball must be getting bigger and bigger each time. As you know, it's a really challenging thing. But I do commend this report. You know, if people get lost in financial papers, and I myself do at times, the medium-term financial strategy is a key document that actually delivers all the information you need in a really simple format. So many thanks to the team and to yourself, Maurice, for me being able to read it. Craig.
Thank you. If I just may take this opportunity to thank Maurice and the team's work for this. When we look at globally, there's this instability after instability, and throughout all of that, Maurice and the team have been able to enable us as a council to deliver great project after great project, and also have the confidence to be able to make some significant investments which are bringing income into the council. So, you know, it's an important paper, and thank you ever so much for all that you do.
Thank you, Craig. David?
Yeah, I recently had an email from a parish clerk asking, because he knew there was hard times and councils were hard up, which services we were going to be cutting. And I was able to reply straight away and very briefly that we weren't cutting any services. And I think there are many councils that are in very difficult times, and all the work we do cannot really continue in the positive way that we are doing it unless the finances are in good order. So, you know, for some time now, it's been a very satisfactory situation. We're never absolutely there. There's always, we need a bit more, but I'd just like to say well done to Councillor Maurice Cook and the finance team, that we have a sound basis going on.
Thank you, David. Richard?
Yeah, thank you very much, Maurice. And again, I'd like to thank the team. You know, we're probably the envy of a lot of councils because we find ourselves in the position we are. But we're in this position not by luck, because Maurice and his team have got us into that position. Hats off to you. It's a good news story, and we should be out there shouting about it. Thank you very much for the team and Maurice.
Thank you. Cabinet members, any other comments from any other cabinets? No. Members? David and then Mike.
I've read somewhere in the MPFS that department budgets are going to have to absorb inflationary increases in goods and services. Can you just confirm that? And the second thing is, we've got spending review on November the 17th. You say that MPFS will be updated on January the 4th. Would it be possible to have some sort of update after the spending review?
As far as the first part of the question, yes, of course, we're subject to inflation. That's why we presented this now, to reflect what we believe has been the effect of the cost of living inflation to this point. And you know, as we've said, it's an ever-changing situation which we are keeping on top of. I mean, what comes out on the 17th of November? Again, the crystal ball's not capable of that just yet. We will know at that time. Of course, if there is anything radically significant that needs reporting before the 3rd of January, we'll do so. But in the meantime, we will have to take what comes out on the 17th of November, feed it into the system, and see where that leaves us.
Thank you. Mike?
Yes, thank you very much. Perhaps as we've been so successful, we could offer our services to His Majesty's government, who might appreciate our expertise. All joking apart, I have two questions. I can refer to page 299, para 5.2, operations partnership brackets Norse. When will we have sight of the details of financial implications when the Norse contract comes to an end?
Okay, well, go on.
I mean, we've brought the business case forward, haven't we? That is ongoing. I'm going to ask Brian if he's got any comment to make on that.
Yeah, just before you do you want to clarify exactly what you mean by that, Mike? Because the business case.
Exactly what I've just said. When will we know the final financial implications of the end of the contract?
Okay, so the financial implications of the end of contract were within the business case. I'm not sure if that was an open or exempt.
Certainly, I have not.
Well, it was delivered to cabinet. I can't remember if it was open or exempt. Can anyone? It was a closed report, so it wouldn't be appropriate for me to highlight anything in there now. But that report is available on CVIS for you to view, Mike. Yeah.
I do have another question, and I hope this one can be answered. Para 5, 2.1, green agenda, caring for our environment. Are East Suffolk going to continue to support hybrid working, given the obvious financial and environmental savings?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from anybody on this paper? No. Oh, yes, there is. Louise.
Yes, good evening. Sorry, I've just gone back to the previous reference from my colleague, Councillor Mike Deacon. It's just in relation to, and I wasn't sure whether Mike was about to ask on this one as well, just with the Appendix A4, the climate change reserves. I note that obviously we've got the green print allocations for the budget, and at halfway down the page, green print, nature small grant scheme, then sustainable travel and plastic action, and then after this it goes to zero, but then there seems to be a sort of commensurate increase in the environmental challenge column row rather right at the very top. Is that because some of those finances will be redistributed on a basis of need as we go through? Is that the thinking? Thanks.
I'm not sure about the thinking, but I mean, the budget is the figures that are in those budgets have been those provided to us by the various portfolio and the officers of those schemes. So what is in the budget at the moment is what we've been asked for the various departments of their needs and requirements for those going forward. So that question really needs to be directed at the environment portfolio.
Thank you. I will do, Maurice. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments from anybody? No, in that case, Maurice, if you'd be so kind as to take us to recommendation, please. Members, you'll find them on page 276.
Thank you, Leader. The recommendations are that the draft medium-term financial strategy attached as Appendix A to the report be approved, that it be approved that members and officers develop proposals to set a balanced budget for 2023-24 and beyond. I so propose and call for a seconder.
Thank you very much. And he's up and waving. Councillor Burrows seconds that. So members, you've heard the recommendation that's moved by our finance guru, seconded by Stephen Burrows. All those in favour in the room? That is unanimous. And online, Mary?
4.
Norman?
4.
Letitia?
4.
Thank you. That is unanimous. And please do pass on our thanks to everyone involved in all the work I know that goes into that, Maurice.
I certainly will.
Thank you. Let's move on, if we may, to item 11. Item 11 is Woodbridge Men's Shed, page 315 to 333 of your papers. And Letitia, one for you, I believe.
Thank you, Chairman. This report this evening that we're looking at is to look at a piece of land that was leased by East Suffolk Council in 2015 to Deben Rowing Club, which terminated the lease as the lack of use of the facilities. The land is currently overgrown and fenced off, and what we're looking at doing is to repurpose that land to Woodbridge Rotary, who want to set up a men's shed. The suggestion is in the report that East Suffolk Council offer a 20-year ground lease and give permission for Woodbridge Rotary to set up a men's shed. The costs of building the shed and covering the expenses will be covered by Woodbridge Rotary, and they have been in contact with local organisations offering or asking for support. This is an enormously good community project. There's a lot of success in men's shed for mental health and well-being. This is making good use of land which is currently overgrown and not being used, and something that I feel that we really should support.
Yeah, thank you, Letitia. You know, men's sheds really good scheme. You know, which provide a great deal of support. You know, they say that women talk face to face and men talk shoulder to shoulder, and I think there's a lot of truth in that. You know, when you're there and you're working and you're beeping away and you're giving that support and that chit chat, there's a lot of truth in that statement. So I'm a great supporter of the men's sheds, and I know there's some very successful ones right across our district. I was surprised that Woodbridge didn't have a men's shed, if I'm completely honest. Or if they do, then, and this is a growth for that, I welcome it even more. Now we've got Julia here supporting Letitia, and I'm sure if there's any questions, she would be only too pleased to answer. But cabinet members, Richard?
Yeah, happy to support this paper. Yeah, I have read lots of things about men's sheds, and I've known one or two people I've worked with who've given up work and have lost their way. And I think the men's shed is an opportunity for those colleagues who hadn't got such a thing as a men's shed back in the day, and they actually lost their way after work, because all of a sudden you work for 50 years and that comes to a sudden halt. And you're right, the mental well-being, and this is an absolutely fantastic opportunity to use that piece of land. Fully support it, and our men's sheds the way to go.
Thank you, Richard. Norman?
Yeah, I agree totally with Richard. This covers right across our community partnerships. It's fantastic. Mental welfare, mental well-being is a vital part of this, of our work out there, and I 100% support this. And I'd like to get a few more going if we can. Thank you. I'd like to second it if that's permissible, sir.
Oh, hey, that's really getting in before the call, isn't it? Yeah, nice one, Norman. Yeah, I'm sure I'll make a note of that. Any other cabinet members? Yeah, David.
Yes, I mean, I'm absolutely support the men's shed movement. When I stop being a councillor, I'm planning to go along to the men's shed and improve my carpentry skills.
Excellent. Morris?
Yeah, I'll just add my support of it, because I mean, as an example, for example, in Framingham, there were two container size units until recently, and so popular it is, they have just bought two more, and they're expanding it and almost running a furniture business. Rob, it's amazing.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the key things you just highlighted there, Morris. Not only, you know, is it good for the people that are going along, but it's also the stuff that they are producing is helping no end of other community groups that otherwise, you know, would struggle to build or to purchase the goods that the men's sheds are producing. So really great initiative. Any other comments from any cabinet members, or indeed any other members? No? Yeah, okay. Yeah, tempting, isn't it? Okay, in that case, let's ask Letitia to take us to the recommendations. And I know already who's going to second it. Letitia.
Thank you, Chair. I just also want to say thank you very much to Julia, because she's worked very closely with the community in the area and helped to bring this paper forward to Cabinet. So the recommendations that Woodbridge Rotary be offered a new 20-year ground lease of the land, outlined in red in the attached plan and Appendix C of this report, at a peppercorn rent and a given licence on construction of the men's shed to a specification agreed by East Suffolk Council's planning and asset management.
Yeah, thank you, Letitia, and I know that Norman wants to second that. So members, you've heard the recommendation that's moved by Letitia, seconded by Norman. All those in favour in the room, that is unanimous. And Mary.
For.
Thank you. So that is unanimous. Thank you all. And Julia, just to echo Letitia's comments, thanks for all your work on this and of course on everything else that you do for your community partnership area. Members, in exceptional circumstances, the council may by law exclude members of the public from all or part of an executive decision-making meeting. The council should, unless there are urgent circumstances, give notice of its intention to do so via the forward plan, which is updated and published on its website 28 clear days prior to the meeting. There are various reasons that the council on occasions has to do this, and examples are because the report contains information relating to an individual, information relating to the financial or business affairs of a particular person, or information relating to any consultations or negotiations. Tonight, members, we have two substantive exempt matters to consider, as outlined on the published agenda, items 14 and 15. Item 14 relates to the Romney Lane Travellers site and outlines proposals for its future management and investment, including the agreement of a preliminary investment programme to improve standards on the site. We're struggling to talk this evening, aren't we? Item 15 relates to a proposed mixed tenure residential development in Lowestoft. This is an opportunity to deliver 9 new homes utilising a brownfield site. The report outlines the options for the future development of the site and makes recommendations for the appointment of a main contractor to design and build the new homes. Subject to detailed design, the build specification for this project will incorporate sustainable innovations such as air source heat pumps, PV panels, electric charging points and water bus. The units are expected to meet an EPC rating of B as a minimum required. So members, it is recommended that under section 100A, subsection 4 of the Local Government Act 1972, as amended, the public be excluded from the meeting for the following items of business on the grounds that they involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 3 of part 1 of schedule 12A of the Act. So I so propose that we move to confidential session and call for a seconder, and the deputy leader has very kindly seconded that on your behalf. So members, you've heard the recommendation. All those in favour in the room, thank you. And Mary?
For.
Norman?
Yes, for.
And Letitia?
For.
Thank you, members. That is unanimous. If I just ask you just to pause for a minute whilst the link is broken.